So
Yep.
good evening, everyone. Maybe passing through on our social media live stream. This is Sheena, your Caribbean College planner. We're going to get ready, started shortly. This is study nursing in Australia. And to talk about that, we have Murdoch University, who will be discussing that today. If you're joining us on Zoom and you're in the Zoom room, thank you for coming in. Um, you're going to be muted for the presentation, but feel free to put any questions through the Q&A or chat option. Um, and we will get to them after the presentation. This presentation focuses on studying nursing if you're interested in becoming a healthcare professional, particularly in the field of nursing, and you're looking to study outside of the Caribbean and Australia is a possibility for you. This is the webinar for you. And I am your moderator this evening. I am Sheena Aline, Caribbean College Planner and Student Advisor at the Student Center. And I'll be taking you through with my colleague from Murdoch University, Daniel Mather, who is going to be here in the Caribbean in May. We're going to be having an in-person session in Barbados. I believe that is May 21st at the Lloyd Erskine Stanley First Center. And this is where you can come and find out more information about studying in Australia, particularly Western Australia. And there are differences between other parts of Australia. So he's going to be talking about why Murdoch might be a good option for students from Barbados and the Caribbean region. And so put that in your calendars, May 21st at the Lloyd Erskine Stanford Center in Barbados. And if you can't join us there, if you're not in Barbados, but you happen to be in another Caribbean country, these webinars are also helpful. So to this month, we look at nursing. Next month, we're going to be study at Murdoch and play some cricket. So if you know someone who's interested in playing cricket while they study, Murdoch will definitely have an option for you. Daniel, as soon as you're ready to share your presentation, you can definitely get started.
Okay. So I've just tried to share that. Just give me a thumbs up if you can see that.
Yep, we can see
Okay.
that.
Perfect. All right. Well, if you're ready, Sheena, I will take the driver's chair from you
Yes,
and
you
we'll
can
get
take
going.
over from me. Yes, I'll stay quiet now.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you very much, Sheena. I greatly appreciate the opportunity and very much looking forward. Thank you very much, Sheena, for the opportunity to be here today and to talk a little bit about Murdoch University and our nursing program for anyone who is interested in becoming a healthcare practitioner. My name is Daniel and I am proudly from Murdoch University. I'm both a graduate and a staff member. So hopefully what I can do today is share you a little bit about what it means to be both of those things. And hopefully you can choose to become at least a student or a graduate of the university and then potentially a staff member in the future if that is the direction that your career takes you. Okay, so before I get started, what we traditionally do here at Murdoch University is recognize the long-standing tradition of education as part of our Australian Indigenous population. So the land upon which our university sits has for many thousands of years been a place of learning for the Indigenous population of Perth. So there's the Noongar Whadjuk people. And so Murdoch University as an institution is only 50 years old. So we're a relatively small speck in that historical learning journey that has occurred on the land upon which the university sits. But what that does mean is that we have a very proud tradition of learning, and it is one that we are very proud to continue to advocate for. And so what I'm hopeful for today is that our presentation will inspire you to become a part of that journey as we continue to improve upon the educational knowledge of our population, both here in Australia and anywhere around the world. So I'll just leave that thought with you as we move into today's presentation. So one of the things that people like to ask me about in Perth is, what is it that you actually do? We've never been to Perth. We don't know a great deal about it. And what I typically say is Perth is a very outdoors lifestyle. So probably similar to what you're familiar with, Perth and Australia is of itself an island. We're a slightly bigger island than what you may be used to in the Caribbean, but overall, we're still an island. So island lifestyle is still a huge part of every day. So that still means exactly the same things as what it may mean to you. So it's being outdoors, being on the water, having great food and drinks, and more importantly, the opportunity to spend quality time with your family. So these images on the screen here just capture a little bit of, I guess, what everyday life can look like in Perth. Doesn't mean it always looks like this. It's really up to you to decide how you want to spend your time whilst you're here in Perth. But what it does offer you is the opportunity to try many, many different things through many, many different settings. Perth is home to a number of different Caribbean student associations. So if you're looking for that connection back home, even though you're halfway around the world, there is the opportunity for you to be able to do that. And Sheena had the opportunity when she visited Perth to actually connect with some of our Caribbean student associations. So she can tell you firsthand exactly what that actually means from someone who is originally from that part of the world. And then one of the things I like to talk about is why you should choose Murdoch as a university. There are many, many universities around the world, many, many different countries that advocate for studying in their location. Australia is a fairly unique and safe location. So from a safety standpoint, we certainly don't have any of the challenges that you may have heard about on the news from other locations. But that's not the only reason to choose Murdoch. The main reason that we encourage people to consider us as a destination is we're a little bit different, but we're proud of why we are different. And let me explain what that actually means. So as I mentioned in my opening, Murdoch University is just over 50 years old. So when we were established in the mid-1970s, it was a very green, left-leaning, liberal, hippie time here in Australia. And Murdoch University was founded and built around our veterinary school. So we've always had a very strong focus on veterinary science, the environment, conservation, and sustainability, even when it wasn't cool to have all of those things as a focus. So when you were talking to students back in the 1970s or the 1980s about studying at university, Murdoch was always considered that left-leaning, liberal, hippie university, as opposed to the traditional, more longer-term institutions here in Australia. We fast forward 50 years to today, and all of a sudden, all of those core tenets that I mentioned before have become huge parts of everyday life. So it's not just a question of, are you a sustainable university? Are you focused on the environment? What are you doing in that? Murdoch University is very proud to be able to say, we've always been focused on that. We're continuing to do that. And what we're hopeful for is that people who will choose to study with us will have those same level of interest and help us to continue to progress the work that we're doing in that, both from an academic standpoint and from a lived experience standpoint. And so our campus is a little bit different in that we are one of the largest land campuses anywhere in Australia. So what that means is, whilst we have access to huge building facilities, teaching labs, lecture halls, all of those sorts of things that you can expect from a university, we're also a very green-spaced university. And you can see that reflected here in some of the images that I've got on the screen. So mental health plays a huge role in everyday life now. And what we at Murdoch University recognise is there is an importance in making sure that your mental health is looked after whilst you're studying with us. So our green spaces provide a fantastic opportunity for you to step outside of the classroom, step away from your studies, and give yourself a mental break before you re-engage. And so that can be from anything from doing hula hoops or sitting on beanbags on Bush Court, through to working out at our gym, or just enjoying a coffee and friends around the campus. There's all of these sorts of spaces that are available to you, and certainly something that I would encourage you to explore if you decide to come and study with us. One of the driving influences on our international student culture is our Den location, which has International Student Day on a Wednesday every week. In addition to that, throughout the week, they do collaborative exercises. So students can just wander in free of charge. Whatever is happening on that day, they are welcome to get involved with. But as I mentioned on our Wednesdays, we have a focus on our international student cohort. So some of the activities that they like to run are things like potluck lunches or dinners, where you make a dish from your home country, you bring that in, and you share that with the other students who are there at the same time. It gives you the opportunity to talk about your culture, talk about the food. Why is that important to you? How is it important to you? And what does it mean? What sort of memories does it evoke as part of your enjoyment of the food? So it's a great way for our students from around the world to be able to connect with other students and talk a little bit about who they are, where they've come from, and what they're doing whilst they're here at Murdoch. We also have our newest building, which is named Bula Katajan, which in the local Indigenous language means lots of learning. So this is one of the buildings where you'll probably spend most of your time whilst you're studying here at the university. It is a teaching only building. So there are no academic offices, there are no administrative offices. It's designed solely for the purposes of student use. So on the top floor, we have our largest academic lecture theatres. The middle section, we have medium-sized tutorial rooms and breakout rooms. And then on the first floor, we have our individual study rooms. So it's designed to be a collaborative building. It's technologically enabled, so you can stream all of your lectures from within the building. You can also use all of the facilities throughout the building to collaborate not only with students who are physically with you, but also with students who may be working remotely at that particular point in time. So it's a centrally located facility available to students 24/7. So this is going to be an important part of your journey through your studies here at Murdoch. And it's just one of the fantastic facilities that we do have available. If you're looking for support services around the campus, we offer a chiropractic clinic for anyone who's having difficulties with their body or their movement. We have a psychology and a counselling clinic that are available free of charge to students. So once again, with that focus on mental health, the university is showing you our demonstrated level of care that we do have for ensuring our students have access both to healthcare professionals who can help them smooth out the transition between moving from halfway around the world to Australia, but then also maintaining that mental sharpness that is required to study a university degree. And then the final service that I did want to hire was our accommodation that we have available on our campus. So students can choose to live on our campus and walk to and from classes every day. Once again, this is the benefit of having a very, very large campus space. Students live in a shared apartment on the campus with other students. Individual rooms are self-occupancy or single occupancy. So you do not share a room with anyone else. Your apartment has a kitchen, a living area, and shared bathroom facilities. We do not have meal plans on our campus, so you do need to know how to cook. That's very important. And there are grocery stores within a 10-minute commute from the campus. So you can get your food, bring it back to campus, and cook it up in your kitchen. The on-campus accommodation has a very vibrant student community. So not only if you are studying will you be involved with what's happening on campus, but if you choose to stay in our accommodation, you will also get the opportunity to be a part of that lifestyle as well. And the accommodation provider does spend a lot of time working to get our students out of their room and away from Netflix and out into the community, meeting with other students. So there's a great mix on the campus. It's about 50-50 between Australian domestic students and then international students from around the world. So there's a good chance if you choose to stay on campus, you're going to meet students not only from Australia, but from a number of different countries all around the world. So it's a great way of actually settling yourself in, learning a little bit more about Perth. If you choose to then move off campus after your first or second year of study, you can absolutely do that. However, some students do choose to stay on campus because they like the convenience. Once again, it's really up to you and your situation, but the option for a streamlined accommodation service is available to you through our on-campus option. And then coming to study in Australia does come with some study benefits, and you can see here on the screen what some of those look like. In today's presentation, we're talking about nursing. So whilst we recognise that part-time work is available during the semester for students and then full-time outside of the semester time, for our nursing cohort, that's really not an option. I'm going to show you in a few slides' time what the actual workload looks like for a nursing student, and it is heavy. There is an expectation that you'll be doing quite a lot of work and quite a lot of hands-on work. So the opportunity to actually work outside of your study is going to be fairly limited. So the option does exist. However, because of the way that our curriculum is structured for nursing, it's unlikely that you're going to have time to work part-time. So keep that in mind. It is an option, but it's going to be a very, very big challenge for you in a nursing degree. On the flip side, what Australia does offer is the opportunity for what we call post-study work rights. So this is a further visa after you graduate from your study and you transition from a student visa to a post-study work rights visa. And this enables you to remain in Australia for up to 3 years after you finish your bachelor degree and work full-time for the duration of that visa. So whilst you may not be able to work part-time during your studies, the opportunity does exist for you to remain in Australia, should you choose to do so, and seek work using that post-study work rights visa. And as I'm sure is the case in the Caribbean, nurses are in huge demand. So there would definitely be an opportunity for you to secure post-study work after you graduate. So just an important distinction between those two and something for you to consider. All right, let's get into the actual nursing of it all, which is what today's presentation is about. So up on the screen here, I've given you a brief breakdown of where and when our Bachelor of Nursing options are available. On the right side of the screen, you can see a little map which shows where our campuses are situated in and around the Perth area. So our main campus, which is the Perth campus, is what we refer to as the Murdoch campus because that's the the suburb that we live in, is located about 15 minutes outside of the Perth CBD or Central Business District. It's easily accessible on public transport. So there is a train line that you can see there indicated on the map that runs right past our Perth campus all the way down to our Mandurah campus, which is about 40 minutes outside of the CBD on public transport. So if you are looking to come and study with us, the most popular option is our Murdoch campus or our Perth campus. It's very close to the city. It has all of the services that I've been talking about through our presentation available on our campus, including our accommodation. Our Mandurah campus is a very much a smaller, more targeted campus. So it doesn't have all of the services that I was mentioning earlier, including our accommodation. So what it does have is basically our lecture halls, our workshops, and our virtual simulation labs. So it's a little bit of a different option for students who are considering our nursing program, but it is a viable one. The curriculum does not change. Everything that you study at both campuses is identical. It's only the distance from the Perth city centre that is the significant difference. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the options for you within a Bachelor of Nursing. So on our Perth or our Murdoch campus, we commence in February every year. That's the start of our academic year here in Australia, which is why we're only starting there for our Murdoch or Perth campus. We offer 2 different entry points on this particular campus. They are both our 3-year degree, so our standard Bachelor of Nursing, which requires no background whatsoever in a healthcare profession or a nursing qualification. Simply having completed high school is sufficient for entry. The other alternative is our 2-year degree, which does require a healthcare background, including nursing registration abroad, so in the country where you are currently practicing your nursing qualification, and work experience. So we recommend a minimum of 2 years work experience. Or the alternative entry pathway is to complete an 18-month diploma of nursing here in Australia to gain entry to that if you don't already have nursing registration and work experience overseas. So 2 key options there for you to consider as part of your study. And then I transition and talk a little bit about our Mandurah campus, which has 3 different options for you to consider starting out. So at our Mandurah campus, we're able to offer our 3-year degree, so our basic Bachelor of Nursing entry pathway, in either a February start or a July start. As I mentioned with the Murdoch or the Perth campus, entry to the 3-year degree only requires a high school qualification. Alternatively, we do have a pathway available for entry into our July start at the Mandurah campus, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in the slides. And then in addition to what we offer at our Murdoch or Perth campus, we also offer the 2-year degree pathway. Once again, it is only available at the February start point, which, as I said earlier, requires nursing registration and work experience overseas or a completed diploma of nursing here in Australia. So you can see there is a great deal of similarity between what we offer at both campuses. The major difference is just simply the additional starting point that is offered at our Mandurah campus, which is that July start point. Unsurprisingly, our Murdoch or our Perth campus is the more popular option for our nursing students. Once again, relatively close to the CBD. It has accommodation available on the campus, and it is easy to navigate to and from the campus via public transport. The Mandurah campus doesn't quite have that same level of access. I was going to say engagement, but that's not the right word. Access. So whilst you can take the train directly down to our Mandurah campus, the train stops immediately opposite the campus, so you can walk there very easily. It is a longer commute, especially if you're living closer to the city centre. So there are some things to be considered about that. The Mandurah campus is far easier to gain access to from an entry standpoint. The competition level for our Murdoch or Perth campus is extremely high. So if you are considering Murdoch as a destination, I would encourage you to think about Mandurah as an option. And for those visual learners out here, what I wanted to do was just share a couple of slides now as to what the degree actually looks like and what are the classes that you would be taking throughout your study. So up here on the screen, as the title says, I've got a basic Bachelor of Nursing 3-year degree, our February start. So this could be either at our Murdoch or Perth campus or our Mandurah campus. It doesn't matter. As I mentioned, the curriculum doesn't change. So you can see what you will be doing across each of the semesters, so 6 in total over your 3-year degree. And what I've tried to do here is highlight with those little yellow dots the actual hands-on work experience that you will be getting as part of your nursing qualification. So one of the things that Australia does very well, particularly with our healthcare students, is providing hands-on access throughout degree programs. So what you can see here is from your first semester of study, you're going to be hands-on. It's not just all going to be theoretical, thinking about how you would do this in a very unusual set of circumstances. So interacting with patients is going to be there from day one. Interacting with other healthcare professionals is going to be there from day one. So you can expect all of this to start as soon as you arrive on the campus. And the workload that you're going to see from those engagements is going to ramp up as you work through the curriculum into 2nd and 3rd year. So once you get to 3rd year, what you're going to find is that the opportunities for that hands-on learning are going to be or make up most of what your semester is actually going to be about. There's going to be a limited, amount of actual lecture work sitting in classrooms. The focus is going to be very much on that hands-on learning. So from the start, when I mentioned that you're going to be in your first year, you won't necessarily be with human patients unless they're your actual student cohort that you're working with. What you'll be doing is working in our simulation lab. So on our campus, once again, because of the space that we have available, we've been able to construct a simulation ward effectively that allows you to practice exactly what it looks like in a hospital setting without ever having to leave campus. So we have technology in there. So I guess human sized and shaped dummies that have the opportunity for you to engage with those. They're robotic, so they're operated by other students or staff working in a control room, and they will set up different settings for you to practice on. So before you actually start handling other humans, we're going to get you into that simulation lab, and we're going to get you practicing what it is that we're wanting you to know and to learn about, so that when you go out into the real world and you're on a ward engaging with other humans, you've got a core background experience that you can tap into. Okay, so I wanted to transition over and just talk a little bit about what the 2-year nursing qualification looks like. So this is for students with a healthcare background who've completed a Bachelor of Nursing and are registered overseas and have work experience are looking for. This is a recognition of that work experience that you already have. So we've effectively stripped out the first year of the 3-year degree, and we're diving straight into second year, because we're assuming that all of the students who come in have that hands-on learning, have that work experience, and understand what we're going to be talking about. In this degree, what we are trying to do is effectively upskill you into what the Australian healthcare sector requires of our nurses. So we're not trying to retrain you. What we're trying to do is upskill you to meet the standards that the healthcare sector here in Australia does require. So there's going to be a huge focus on getting you out, getting you into the wards, getting you engaged, making sure that you use the simulation labs as much or as little as you need to before you're actually out there amongst the community, working hand in hand with the other healthcare professionals here in Australia. So this particular degree is full on. You will start in January of, if you were coming for our February start, you will start in late January or early February of the year, depending on the calendar, and you will basically be studying all the way through till the end of November, early December. So my point I made earlier about part-time work during your study, nursing is going to be a very, very time-consuming profession, not only with the time on the campus that you will spend, whether that's in the classroom or in the simulation lab, but then more importantly, when you're out in the workplace, traveling to and from the workplace that you're going to be doing your professional practice in. So that's going to be a big part of your second year of your 2-year nursing degree. And once again, I've highlighted where you will have the opportunity to be fully focused on patient support, either on the campus in our simulation lab, or more importantly, for our 2-year qualified nursing students going out into the real world. And then finally, I just wanted to show you what the curriculum for our July entry at the Mandurah campus looks like. As I mentioned, it's almost identical to what we would do for our February start, whether that is at our Perth or Murdoch campus or our Mandurah campus. All we've done is effectively shifted everything backwards by 1 semester. So rather than starting in semester 1 in that February timeline, you would start in July. The curriculum doesn't change. It's simply when we are offering those classes. Once again, as I've done with the other slides, I've highlighted it with the little yellow dots where you are going to get your professional practice experience throughout the 3-year Bachelor of Nursing degree down at our Mandurah campus. Okay, so I talked a little bit about the virtual labs, so the simulation lab that you would have access to. These images here on the screen are just from our student cohort who are working in our simulation lab. So this is where students get to practice before they're actually going out on the ward. So you can see from in the background of the images, all of the technology that you're going to be tapping into when you're actually out in the physical world, in a hospital, in a professional workplace, is going to look identical to what we have in our simulation lab. So it's a great way of upskilling yourself, making sure that you are familiar and comfortable with the layout of where things are, where to find things, how to go about learning how to using all of this technology. Because when I walk in there and I have no background in this field, I'm always blown away. I have no idea what I'm looking at. All I know is the people in there are very, very professional. They're walking around with purpose. They understand what it is that they need to do. And the simulation lab also gives our students the opportunity to get 360 feedback from our staff who are watching and monitoring the students in these simulation labs. Not only are they walking around supervisors like you would have on a regular ward, but they can then set up scenarios through the control room. We can bring in our dummies, we can set those up, and we can get those scenarios up and running, and we can test how well you're absorbing the knowledge, how well you're able to think on your feet, because that's really what healthcare providers and professionals are required to do. Think on your feet and be responsive. So what we can hopefully do through our simulation lab is help you train your brain to be thinking a little bit more along those lines. So when you're out in the workplace, you're ready to go. I wanted to flash up the admission requirements just so that you have an idea of what they actually look like. I will highlight the English language requirement. Entry into our nursing program does require a slightly higher level of English than what we would normally require for another bachelor degree entry into here at Murdoch University. However, there are ways around that. You don't always have to sit an English language test, as I know that most students in the Caribbean have completed either high school or some form of tertiary education in English. So we can work around that. So it's certainly something, if you're not sure about it, you're welcome to reach out to Sheena, or if you can, come along to my session next month and we can talk in more detail about how we may be able to get you access to our Bachelor of Nursing. But if you're not sure about whether or not your qualifications do meet our direct entry, we do offer a pathway through our Murdoch College, which is based on our campus, our Murdoch or Perth campus. And completion of one of the qualifications with Murdoch College does automatically guarantee you entry into our first year nursing at our Mandurah campus. So for students who are wanting to start in July, but not sure that you have the academic qualification to come in, or you're looking to transition from another field outside of the healthcare space, our pathway through Murdoch College can be a really interesting and unique way of gaining access without having to go back and do further study elsewhere around the world. The benefit of studying at Murdoch College is you're on our campus here in Perth. So you're coming out, you're living and studying with other students. You have access to all of the same resources that a Murdoch University student would have. We don't make you wear a hat or a t-shirt that says Murdoch College so that people know that you're not studying at the university. That's not what we do. As I said, you have access to all of the same resources that we have, and you're situated on the campus. So you can get an understanding of what university life is like by actually living it even before you start. The other option that you can consider is to come in and do a qualification with TAFE, which is our vocational education provider here in Western Australia. So for students who don't have a healthcare background but are interested in nursing, TAFE does offer an enrolled nursing pathway. So effectively, that's for students who want to come in and practice as an enrolled nurse here in Australia. They can take an 18-month diploma of nursing qualification, and on completion of this particular qualification, not only are you registered to work as an enrolled nurse in Australia, but you can then also look to transition into our 2-year Bachelor of Nursing, and on completion of that qualification, work as a registered nurse. So there are 2 different options for you to consider there. If you're not sure about your entry requirements, you're welcome to talk to Sheena, as I mentioned, or come along next month and we can sit down and go through your background. And then finally, I wanted to finish up on the actual cost of things, because international study is not cheap. Not only do you have to actually afford to be able to travel all the way to Australia, which is not close, although as Sheena now says, it's far more accessible than she ever thought. What the university does is recognise that the cost of studying is not cheap. So what we're trying to do is, I guess, reinvest in you. You're making an investment in your education. So what the university wants to do is recognize that investment that you were making and then give you a return on your investment even before you do graduate. And we do that through our scholarship program. So you can see up here on the screen, we have two different versions of our scholarship that are available. We have our standard international welcome scholarship, which is a 20% reduction for the life of your study here at Murdoch University for any bachelor or master's degree. And our Bachelor of Nursing does qualify for this particular scholarship. So if you were looking to come and study with us, commencing either this year in 2026 or in 2027, you would be eligible for a 20% reduction on the tuition cost of your study for the life of your degree. So once again, your investment in your education is important. And what we're trying to do is return some of that investment to you a little bit earlier than perhaps than what you would have thought post-graduation. In addition to that, we also offer an International Futures Scholarship. Unfortunately, our Bachelor of Nursing is not relevant to that. But what I can say is that this particular scholarship changes every year. So it is for selected bachelor or master's degrees, and you can see the list there. So there is potentially hope in the future in 2028 or 2029 that our Bachelor of Nursing would be included in this particular scholarship. But what I can say is that Murdoch University will be able to offer you a scholarship, 20% reduction for the duration of your study, should you choose to come and study a Bachelor of Nursing with us. And then finally, I wanted to wrap up and say, look, thank you very much for the opportunity to present Bachelor of Nursing here at Murdoch University. I hope that information has been useful. It's generated some questions in your mind, but also given you I guess, the tools to consider Australia as a destination for study. Yes, we are a long way away, but one of the benefits is it's wonderful when you get here. And I hope what I've been able to do today is give you a little bit of a sense of that. So thank you very much again, and looking forward to any questions, but also more importantly, to talking with you next month when I'm in country. Thanks, Sheena.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for that presentation. And you did allude to the fact that I did travel all the way out to Perth to see you. That was last year, and I can't believe a year has gone. And it definitely was an interesting trip. One of my most memorable trips. So Perth was not what I expected. It was better. I didn't have any expectations, very few. So I know when I saw Perth itself, I was definitely pleasantly surprised. And I had told you from the tour, one of the most striking programs for me was, yes, the veterinary
Yep.
medicine, that is definitely a signature program, but the psychology and the nursing, and not just the facilities, but really and truly talking to your faculty, who are very welcoming and very relaxed. So it's very informal, which is something that you don't always get at every university that you visit. So if you are already a nurse in the Caribbean, or you are thinking about nursing, you're coming from secondary school or from community college, and you are exploring your options, you're exploring Caribbean options, and you're looking at options outside of the Caribbean, then I definitely implore you to consider Australia as an option. And we know we're in a space right now where the more open you are to other options, the better it is. Don't worry about the flight. That's the least of your worries. And you can go via UK if you don't want to necessarily travel through certain countries at this time. I did the UK route. It was two flights. So I did one flight from Barbados directly to the UK. I did it overnight. And then I took the early flight out to Perth, and it was direct. So there was no stopping. There was no transiting through any other country. It was a direct flight. Long but very pleasant flight. And the visa process is e-visas now. So there's no need to leave your passport somewhere, get something imprinted. Everything is pretty seamless. So I didn't have to walk with paper. They had everything pulled up from the time I got there. So it was pretty simple. Student visas are a different thing. There's a little bit more technicality to that, but definitely explore it. And as I said, and as Daniel alluded to the fact that he will be in the Caribbean in May, and he will have a session in Barbados. If you're not in Barbados and you're watching this, these webinars are also for you. And you also have the CutFest website where you can actually view Murdoch's dedicated page and you can speak to Daniel or the Student Center. The Caribbean Application Center team is there on hand to handle any applications to Murdoch University. There is no application fee to apply to Murdoch. You can apply via the CutFest website. You fill out the form, you submit the documents allocated to you. If additional requirements or additional documentation is required, the team will reach out to you and let you know. And so there's no cost to apply to Murdoch. So you don't have to worry. I know some countries there are lots of onerous application school fees, and we try to get waivers when we can, but in the case of Murdoch, there's not an application fee. So give it a look. Professor Cope, Vicky Cope, who is the Associate Dean of the nursing faculty, visit our Instagram and Facebook website. You will find clips of the visit that we took last year to Murdoch, and you can see videos with the Dean of Nursing giving information at the undergraduate level. And for those of you who already have your bachelor's, there are also postgraduate options as well. So with that said, Daniel, I have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
So I know in the admission requirement slide, we talked about you no CSEC. So students will obviously have their CSEC, yes, but
Mhm.
they are required to have CAPE. But if they don't have CAPE, but they have qualifications from their state college or community college, will that also be considered?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the nursing program will consider pretty much any qualification from around the world.
Mhm.
So it's certainly something that we can talk about more next month if people have examples that they want to share. But yes, we recognize high school and vocational qualifications from many, many different countries. Obviously, the Caribbean is a fairly new market for Australia, so we may not necessarily have an immediate answer for you, but it's definitely something that our nursing school are very open to reviewing. So it's more a question of if you're uncertain, just ask. We will follow it up and get an answer for you. It's not necessarily a no straight away. It's just we're not familiar. We're going to look into this and come back to you. So ask the question.
You said for the 3-year program that you don't necessarily have to have a nursing background, but are there required subject courses that students should have? So for example, I know math might be an option, but they have to have biology. Are those some of the recommended, or are they mandatory subjects, or can they completely come in with no science background and apply for the 3-year?
Yeah, look, there's no mandatory requirements. Obviously, if you're coming into a healthcare field, I would recommend that you have a background in biology. I think if you've done English literature, history, geography, probably not going to be the most useful subjects in a healthcare field. So thinking a little bit about those, I think if you're doing your CSEC or something like that, or you've got a background in that area, there's no mandatory requirement.
Let's recommend.
However, it would be very, very helpful to have a background in biology at the very least.
The reason why I asked is that we've been seeing some students who have changed their mind completely with their original pathway. And sometimes midstream, they then decide, well, they want to go into the healthcare profession for whatever
Yeah.
reason. So that was one of the main reasons why I asked. And so would you recommend that they take the pathway programs via the college? Because you had two options. You had
Yes.
one that would start that seems to be lengthier, and then there was an accelerated one. So the accelerated one is for whom is targeted for whom?
It really just depends on the actual background of the student who's coming in there. So the accelerated one would be for students who have completed up to year 12, but maybe have had a break between finishing year 12. They've gone on and done something else. They're wanting to get back into higher education, but they're not. It's like, oh, I'm not really sure about studying. It's been a while. So that
Okay.
accelerated program will kind of help them upskill, just get them back into the swing of things.
Mhm.
The slightly longer program is for students who may have only completed up to year 11. So we're trying to kind of bridge the gap
Right
there
between.
as well as giving them that upskilling.
So since you said that, if persons, for example, after you finish your Caribbean secondary education certificate, which is the O-level equivalent, some persons might not want to go on and do CAPE, or they might not, they just don't want to go on the sixth form. Could they take that pathway instead based on their CSEC scores?
They could certainly look at it, yes. We may, depending on their CSEC scores, we may look at extending it slightly. It would just, I think it would be a very individual sort of assessment that we would make
Hmm.
for each student. But yes, I think the short answer is yes, that program would be an option for that, sorry, that pathway would be an option for them to consider. It's just going to be the question of duration.
Okay, because usually if they're looking at the UK, which is Commonwealth based, and they didn't want to go to sixth form, then they do a foundation. So the
Yep.
CSET will allow them to do the foundation, and then they enter year one of their program.
Yep.
So if it's
So
similar
yeah.
to that setup, then
It would be very similar to that, yes. We
now
might call it something different, but yes, it would be very similar. Yeah.
okay. Well, I have a devil's advocate question. So you mentioned TAFE WA. So TAFE is your vocational technical institution, similar to
Yep.
how we will have our polytechnics over here on this side. And you have essential because there's several TAFE campuses all over. But in that way, that setup is that TAFE will cost less than coming to Murdoch first, wouldn't it? So could
Yes.
it be enough less or more cost effective options? So for example, if they came, did a diploma in nursing first, then come over to you to get the bachelor's, is that a pathway that people use sometimes?
It is. And it's a fairly common one, especially for students who are coming from a non-healthcare background and they're not really sure if they want to do nursing because I mean, yeah, I think for many students, nursing can be a lifestyle choice. It's like, okay, cool, I think I want to do this, but I'm not sure. So rather than committing to the full 3-year bachelor degree, it's like, okay, cool. If I can do a half of that, so only 18 months
Okay.
at a lower cost, I can look at doing that. Um, yes, you would definitely save some money by doing the TAFE qualification first. So I think nursing is about just over 40,000 Australian dollars a year with us, minus 20%, 10% is four. So it's about, let's say it's 32,000 Australian. Your TAFE qualification for 1 year is probably going to be less than that. But because you're doing 1.5 years, it's, mm, I would be very interested to do the math and see exactly um, how close the cost benefit and how close, what the cost benefit difference is, because it might be smaller than you actually think. So the benefit would be you get two qualifications out of it. You would have your diploma of nursing plus a bachelor of nursing. If you came and did 3.5 years, so you do 18 months at TAFE plus 2 years with us, versus you could just do a bachelor of nursing in 3 years
Mhm.
and be done.
Okay.
So it's
Lot to think about. To think
yeah.
about there.
There's, I mean, look, and I think yes, there is lots to think about, and it's so dependent on what the individual wants to get out of
Mhm.
their qualification. Because once again, you're investing. You would need to ensure, if you wanted to remain in Australia, obviously your work rights you would have available through that post-study work visa. If you wanted to return to the Caribbean, does your qualification travel with you? Will it be recognised in your home country? Now, obviously, Australia is part of the Commonwealth, so you would hope that that's going to be relatively seamless. However, working with and around government departments, that's not always the case. So it's important to investigate that before you make your decision to invest.
Okay. That's good advice. So it's not so clear cut or so simple. So you definitely have to do your research and ask some very pointed question and do your math before you proceed. One last question. So if you already have a Bachelor of Nursing and you're currently a registered nurse in your country, and you are looking at moving out and looking at opportunities outside, and say Australia is an option, what would be the best recommended course of action for that person? Would they will you tell them come and do a 2 year and get an Australian Bachelor in Science in Nursing, or would they be able to do something at the master's level instead?
I think the short answer is they could do both. It would depend. The longer answer is it depends on the institution. So at Murdoch, we don't offer a Master of Nursing in the traditional qualification space. Where what students will find with us is that we have a number of master level qualifications that are a little bit more specific. So we do have master's level programs in, I'm going to butcher this word, so apologies to any healthcare professionals out there, gerontological nursing. So that is also, that's an option. But for anyone who is a currently practicing nurse but wants to move into healthcare administration, we offer two master's level programs, one in health administration, policy and leadership,
Mm.
and another one in health science that are effectively transitions from hands-on everyday practical work through to administration standpoint, but using using your knowledge and skills from being on the floor to transition that into a management type of role. So those would be the two qualifications that we would offer at that master level. Once again, not directly related to a nursing qualification, but it's almost that upskilling standpoint. So it's taking all of your skills that you've learned through your bachelor qualification and your work experience and transitioning those into a different role in that same healthcare setting.
But it would be kind of hard for someone coming in to move in from practitioner to leadership role in two different jurisdictions, though, because they wouldn't have nursing history in Australia. So,
Potentially, but those master's qualifications don't require you to have a registered nursing qualification
okay,
to apply. So
okay,
it, as I said, it's not as specific as a nursing qualification, which does require that background.
right.
It's that upskilling, that next step in the I guess the progression chain.
Well, Professor Cook had talked about cancer biology. So when you get a
Mhm.
chance, now that you're back in Perth, you can ask her if they have launched that program because I think they were doing
Yeah.
something along that line. So you can find out if they're, if they have. I think it was supposed
Mhm.
to be ready, if not this year, next year, but
Yeah,
I'm subject to correction, so you can check that out as well.
of course.
Um, yeah. So, folks, I don't have any more questions, but this was study nursing in at Murdoch University in Australia, Western Australia. And if you are a Caribbean student and you hear Australians like that is too far, there are no Caribbean people there, think again, they are. Um, there is a Perth Caribbean Association, quite active. And actually, when I arrived, they're the ones that picked me up from the airport and introduced me to a whole bunch of Caribbean people from all over the Caribbean. So it wasn't one particular country in general. There were persons from quite a few. So Antigua, St. Lucia, um, Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, because it was a Barbadian that dropped me to my hotel. Uh, and so in fact, all of the countries are represented one way or another. And I think they opened up a restaurant. There is a
Mhm.
Caribbean restaurant in Perth. If you sometimes feel and miss your home food, there's a place for you. And they also help persons with coming. So once you reach out to them and explain to them your situation, they actually do communicate with you. I just had to send an email and that started a whole bunch of conversations before I even arrived in Perth. So there's a Caribbean person or persons everywhere, and they're not only connected to persons in Perth, but all over Western Australia, as well as other Caribbean persons in other states across Australia. So definitely you won't be alone. You have something to say, Daniel? Sorry.
No, no, yes, I was just gonna say you will definitely not be alone. You will find your people will find you.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of Australia.
Yeah, it's very more diverse than I thought it would be. So we'll be back another next month twice. next month, again, a webinar on study at Murdoch and play some cricket. So if you know someone that's interested in playing cricket, this could be a good launch pad. We know the UK have a very serious pipeline in getting potential cricketers from the Caribbean via UK schools. And so there is an opportunity for students who have a cricketing background. And it's not just undergrad, it's also postgrad too, correct, Daniel? So
Correct.
whether you have a degree or you're coming from high school or community or state college, there is an option for you. And that will be May 13th at 6:30. And then for those of you who are in Barbados, you can come out and meet Danielle at the Lloyd Erskine Stanleyford Center. That will be a Thursday, May 21st. More details will come via our social media. So definitely stay tuned, Danielle. I know you'll have you early, you not long got back in from a trip, so I'm going to let you go and start your day because it's morning time where you are, and it's I'm ending my day here in lovely Barbados. So I want to say thanks to those who held on for the entire Zoom, those who passed through on our social media platform where we're live streaming. I want to say good evening to everyone. We'll be back again. Remember, March 13th, and there's always more to come. And just another thing, if you are interested in medicine in the UK, we definitely have a UCAT prep now available to all Caribbean students. So you can UCAT prep with the Student Center that will be managed by a UK-based tutor who that's all they do all day is prepare students for the UCAT exam. For those interested in pursuing medicine in the UK, you can check out more on the Student Center's website and social media pages. More to come about that. That course will start in July. So that could be something to do for the summer as you prepare your applications for the 2026 to 2027 admission cycle. So again, good evening, everyone. Take care and goodbye for now.